I'm excited to have Dr. John McDougall on my show today. And Dr. McDougall is a physician, a nutritional expert who teaches better health through vegetarian cuisine, has been studying, writing, and speaking out about the effects of nutrition on disease for over 50 years. Dr. McDougall believes that people should look and feel great for a lifetime, but unfortunately, many people unknowingly compromise their health through poor dietary habits. Now, Dr. McDougall is the founder and director of the nationally renowned McDougall Program, a 10-day residential program that he and his wife Mary have hosted at a luxury resort in Santa Rosa. And this is where medical miracles occur through diet and lifestyle changes. Now, on top of all of this, Dr. McDougall has written many books on health and nutrition, and a few of those books are Starch Solutions, the McDougall Program for Weight Loss, the McDougall Program for Women, the McDougall Program for Healthy Heart, and many, many more. And I imagine many of the individuals who are watching and even listening to this are familiar with Dr. McDougall, but for those who are not, I will leave a link to his books in the show notes for today's show. So Dr. McDougall, thank you so much for coming on this show. I'm excited to talk with you.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be back.
Yeah.
I spent many years talking to your dad and his following. In fact, your dad was a friend of mine. And there's always an opportunity to talk to the crowd in Lodi because they were enthused about life, interested in getting better health, living a more full life, not suffering sickness or obesity. So it was it's always as a speaker, it's important to have a crowd that appreciates you and is well prepared to hear the message. And your dad prepared the audience well, and they were a very special group of people. And I assume they have the same orientation of people down in your area now. So, yeah, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, glad you're here. So for those who aren't familiar, Dr. McDougall, can you briefly explain what is the McDougall diet?
Sure. I'm a medical doctor. I'm a board-certified internist, licensed in 5 states, clinical professor in 4 universities. So it's been a long road. It's been a half a century, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
The McDougall program is very simple, very easy to understand. Well, the truth is simple and easy to understand. Anybody who's talking over your head doesn't understand the subject. The McDougall program is primarily a diet program based on starches with the addition of fruits and vegetables. The McDougall program does not contain animal foods or free oils like olive oil, corn oil, safflower oil, etc. Instead, the McDougall program, as I mentioned in the first sentence, is based on starches. That means rice, corn, potatoes, sweet potatoes. And that's one of the more difficult things for people to get their mind around is that they must live on a diet centered on starches. However, if they're a person of history, a person of geography, a person of religion, you will look back at human history
Mm-hmm.
and discover that all large successful populations of people obtained the bulk of their calories from starch. We're talking about 99.99% of the people who have ever walked this earth have lived on diets such as rice in Asia. In Central America, we had the people of the corn, the Aztecs and the Mayans. In South America, in the Andes, they lived on potatoes primarily, and also quinoa. So wherever you look, you find people who live on starch-based diets. And the exception is when they become wealthy. And you can date this back, well, I can date it back at least 4,000 years.
Mm.
The kings and queens of old, like, for example, in what is now known as Egypt, you have the pyramids, you have the prince and princesses, the priests and priestesses, the queens and kings, all the aristocrats who were eating the rich food. They were eating the animals and the cakes, etc. Whereas the common person who built the pyramids, who did the hard work, was living on a diet of primarily wheat and barley and other grains. Uh, but if you look at these mummies, these rich people who they found in the pyramids, that's where rich people ended their interment, was in a pyramid. If you look at their bodies carefully through autopsy or CAT scans,
Mm-hmm.
find that they have similar diseases to Americans. Half the people that you could identify arteries in had severe atherosclerosis.
Mm.
In other words, they had heart disease and stroke disease and disease in their arteries of the legs, etc. They had other diseases related to the Western diet, even congenital malformations that are known to be due to the Western diet.
Mm.
The ones who ate that food, the American food, back in Egypt 4,000 years ago, they had babies with spina bifida.
Really?
Yeah, which is due to a lack of folic acid, foliage plants.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, wherever you look throughout history, throughout the world, you find that wealthy people, King Henry VIII, etc., wealthy people stopped eating the starches and instead obtained their bulk of their calories from animal foods, various kinds of fowl and four-legged hooved animals, etc. Uh, that's what the rich people did. And they got
Yes.
fat and they got the gout and they got sick. What's happened over the last, well, particularly the last 35 years, but it's been happening for the last 150 years since the midst of the Industrial Revolution and the harnessing of fossil fuels. We could have never done this.
Mm.
They obtain all their energy for lights, etc., from whales. We run out of whales a long time ago. But they discovered fossil fuel about 150 years ago. As a result, we have developed a world where overnutrition is a bigger problem than undernutrition.
Mm. Good point.
Situations like in China, you're not old enough, but I'm old enough, and your dad was old enough to remember the times when in China everybody was thin. In fact, they published that in China, less than 1% of the population had a weight problem or had type 2 diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
Today in China, they brag that, somewhere between 12 and 14% have frank diabetes, and over half the population is pre-diabetic, and obesity is rampant. Now, the thing that's changed in China is in the last 35 years is they went from a diet that was 90% white rice. White rice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 90% white rice with some vegetables and very little animal food, to a diet that has been stimulated by their interests that they found on American TV, CNN News, etc. They've learned the American way, the American ideal. Uh, people from China, people from the continent of India, from Africa, from all over the world. They want to be just like Americans.
Yeah. And
Americans eat like kings and queens, and they're fat and sick like kings and queens. Now, that's the cause of the problem.
mm-hmm.
Cause is the wrong source of calories. It's animal foods and free oils and junk. Sugar you have to include in there, but it's minor compared to the toxicity of oil and animal foods. Uh, so people live on the wrong food, and as a result, they get sick like they have for thousands of years.
Mm.
Those people who stay on a healthy diet, who have a starch-based diet, which is a diminishing population worldwide, don't have heart disease, prostate cancer, breast cancer, melanoma.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they don't have the heart disease like we do, or the same kind of strokes, breast cancer, colon cancer, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis. They don't have these diseases.
Mm-hmm.
But by no coincidence, when these Asians or blacks, when they change to the Western diet, or as the white population, or it doesn't matter what color you are, as you change to a diet of kings and queens, you get fat and you get sick like kings and queens. I don't care how many pills you throw at the problem. You're going to be a fat diabetic carrying around a bunch of pills. You're going to be a fat person full of atherosclerosis and blocked arteries carrying around a bunch of pills.
Yeah.
You're going to be a person dying of deterioration of the nervous system with multiple sclerosis, shooting yourself with a bunch of ineffective, criminally expensive drugs.
Hmm.
You're just a fat, sick person carrying around a bunch of drugs.
Yeah, and it's sad because you see that more now than I think ever before. If I could take a medication and continue living my lifestyle, I'd rather do that than change.
Well, I don't believe that. Uh,
Really.
yeah, it takes a while for people to learn.
Hmm.
I think most people really like themselves
Yeah.
and they like their families and they like their life and they don't die. Uh, they've just been so brainwashed,
Hmm.
believing that you have to have meat to get protein and dairy to get calcium, and you have to eat fish to get omega 3s, all of which are completely untrue. There's never been a case of calcium or protein deficiency ever reported in world literature, and no fish has ever made an omega 3 fat.
Mm.
Animals can't desaturate it at the carbon 3 position. So it's only plants that make omega 3 fats. The way the fish gets the omega 3 fat is it eats algae or seaweed. So this is all what I call unique positioning. It's a marketing technique
Hmm.
to sell products. So as a result, the entire population has been lied to by industry, and they believe that they're going to fall apart and become, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
a soulless mass. I don't know what they think. If they didn't eat all of this animal protein as the meat and dairy industry told them. So they have to get over that. We come from an era of the atomic bomb. That was in my generation and my parents' generation. I mean, if we can destroy the world, we ought to be smart enough to solve diseases due to bad food. But, or we should have, if we could destroy the world with an atomic bomb, we should have been able to find a miracle drug just on the order of penicillin.
Hmm.
And so we put our faith in science and abandoned the natural healing properties of the body, which is where it all is. Even with science and discoveries in modern medicine, the body won't heal except on its own. I mean, I, as a doctor, may be able to tip things in a better direction for the patient. For example, if you get a laceration, I can sew you up and make a better looking wound. If you fracture a bone, I can straighten the bone and more align it so it looks more normal when you're done. If you get an infection, I can lance the abscess and put you on an antibiotic. But what you have to realize is all the things that I've been describing to you are acute illnesses,
Hmm.
single injuries. When it comes to chronic disease, it's due to repeated injuries. Like, for example, I used to injure myself 40 times a day with Marlboro cigarettes.
Mm.
No matter how much cough syrup I took or vitamins for smokers I took, I stayed sick until I quit the problem. Uh, because I was injuring myself 20 to 40 times a day with Marlboro cigarettes. And I can tell you a similar story about whiskey.
Mm.
I never could get better until I quit the whiskey. It just plain and simple. You're never going to get better until you quit the cause of the disease. I don't care how much blood pressure medication you take. It may make a minor difference. I'm not saying that medicine doesn't offer some differences. It's real hard to tell the truth, though, because there's been so much lying going on in the medical journals and the science that it's really hard to tell where the truth lies. But when it comes to chronic disease, the only way you're going to fix chronic disease is to stop the repeated injury. And that comes from the fork and spoon. And so it is the rich Western diet, which has always made people who ate like aristocrats look like aristocrats. It's never going to change. If you want to start looking like a strong, healthy athlete, you have to eat like an athlete. Uh, Roman gladiators used to live on barley and beans. They were known
Hmm.
as barley men. The gladiators of 1800 years ago, why did they live on barley and beans? Because they could kick the butts of the other gladiators who lived on meat. You know,
Yeah,
living
yeah.
in the Colosseum was not a good thing.
Now I know in the early 2000s, one of your presentations at our health event was the hazards of a high protein diet. And you've mentioned protein a few times. So for those who are watching or listening for the first time, what are some of the concerns with animal proteins or high protein diet?
Well, high protein diets are being pushed because, well, unique positioning. First of all, the dairy and meat industry and egg industry and fish industry made sure you knew what protein was. It's just like the Nexium, Prilosec, purple pill industry made you learn what GERD was.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to take something unique about their products and teach you how essential it was, even though it's not. Like I said, there's never been a case of protein deficiency ever described on any natural diet.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Well, no, nobody has, no doctor has. I mean, starving people is one thing, but not on any natural diet with adequate calories. So anyway, you had to lay the foundation uh, with the business interests, and then back about 100 years ago, there was the beer drinkers diet.
Mm.
These high protein diets started a long time ago. What diet gurus discovered was that if you take enough carbohydrate, which is the sugar in food, enough carbohydrate away from people, and you replace it with fat and or protein, you'll make them so sick they'll lose their appetite, and as a result they'll lose weight. And that's how these ketogenic diets work, is they make you ill. So you go into ketosis. When you're in ketosis, you lose your appetite. Well, to begin with, you lose 8 to 10 pounds of water weight through a
Mm-hmm.
mechanism related to protein. But then if you can stick with the diet, and few people can. I mean, Robert Atkins couldn't. I did a national campaign in the year 2000. I was in the front page of the New York Times. I was on many shows, Neil Corvota, many, many shows. I was on when Atkins died and he was declared obese
Oh, really?
with heart disease. He had serious heart disease. He lied about it. He
Oh,
couldn't lie
oh.
about obesity because you could see it. But anyway, you can't stick with these high protein diets because they make you sick. You can only stay sick so long, and they make you weak. I mean, nobody wins a triathlon or a marathon on a high protein diet. You need to
Mm-hmm.
hydrate. And that's what the winners of marathons and triathlons have eaten for as long as I've been aware of, which has been 40 years. They live on diets of corn or rice or potatoes and spaghetti, the carbohydrate loading.
Yes. Yes.
So you have the problem. And if you have enough protein in your diet, you get something called rabbit, like in the bunny rabbit,
Mm-hmm.
rabbit starvation. If 35% of your diet is protein, and they get close to that with the Atkins diet, uh, you get rabbit starvation, which you can die from. And
Okay.
that comes from the situation where Arctic explorers only had rabbit to eat,
Mm.
and it was a very low fat rabbit, and it was very high protein. And they got sick and they call it rabbit starvation. So these are dangerous, and these foods that are high protein also have very other companions with them that are bad for you. They have no dietary fiber. They're high on the food chain, so they're loaded with pesticides. They get infected with other organisms that infect us, foodborne
Mm-hmm.
organisms. Don't catch aphids or tobacco mosaic virus or Dutch elm disease. No people catch that. These are plant diseases. We catch diseases from pigs and cows and chickens because we're animals. So we get salmonella and E. coli and staphylococcus and listeria and mad cow, etc. Uh, so when you eat a high protein diet, almost by necessity, you're eating a high animal food diet. So it's highly contaminated with chemicals and organisms. I mean, we're talking about 60,000 people a year are hospitalized for foodborne illnesses. Um, and then you're talking about the cholesterol and the saturated fat, which are not conducive to healthy arteries. And then you go on to the whole issues that I only became aware of after years of being in the doctor business trying to help people, and that's the issues of animal cruelty, which I hold very highly these days. I was once blind as the importance of what we were doing in terms of killing these animals.
Mm-hmm.
And most recently, over the last 15 years, my passion has been mainly the environment.
Okay.
I don't know, I don't really give a damn what you believe, to tell you the truth, but the environment is in big trouble. And regardless of how many global warming deniers there are out there, my grandchildren do not have a chance.
Mm.
My children barely have a chance. And primarily due to the livestock industry.
Is that right?
They
Yeah.
over half the greenhouse gases are produced by the livestock industry. There are other issues out there, like for example, there's transportation and heating, but these are hard things to fix. It would take 20
Yes.
years, I was reading this morning, put everybody in electric cars.
Mm.
But tomorrow morning, if you could get out there and talk to the world, Mr. Vieira, if you could get out there and talk to the world and tell them that over half the greenhouse gases are produced by the livestock industry, and it's 100 times more destructive to the environment to grow beef as opposed to potatoes. And you could get not only your followings, but the rest of the world to understand this, what damage it's doing to individuals, to communities, to countries, to the whole planet.
Hmm.
Then, maybe we'd have a chance to save what we live on.
Yeah, we can make it.
But it's not happening. It's the last thing ever talked about is the food, but it's the most doable uh, factor as far as saving planet Earth that we can do is
Hmm.
from an animal food-based diet, which about half the world lives on, to a plant food starch-based diet. Very important you get the starches in there. Starch needs to be about 90% of your food,
Really,
not
90%.
not broccoli, cauliflower, bean sprouts.
Yeah.
You'll starve to death. Kale, you'll starve to death.
Hmm.
There's no population that ever lived on kale or broccoli, ever.
Hmm.
Anybody who comes to talk to your group, any of the nutritional density guru experts who tell you otherwise, is FOS. You can fill in the blanks. Nobody ever lived on a kale-based diet.
You have a variety,
No, you have a starch-based
a
diet.
starch base.
Starch, do you understand what I'm saying? You must get the calories. You
Hmm.
can't get the calories from broccoli or lettuce or kale. You'll starve to death.
Hmm.
And plus, these foods like broccoli and kale are what we call hyperaccumulators. They accumulate cesium and thallium and other environmental toxins more than any other
Is
food.
that right?
And you have this whole issue of arsenic and rice that everybody's
Hmm.
about. Well, excuse me, you know, uh, we know why rice is contaminated with arsenic. It's because they grow rice now on cotton fields where they used to kill the boll weevils with arsenic.
I see. Yeah.
And and it's the same people who have this rice fear
Mm.
shouldn't be eating arsenic.
Yeah.
But we know where it comes from. We know how to deal with it. These same people who are promoting the scare of rice and arsenic, they forget to tell you that more efficient hyperaccumulators of serious toxins are foods like broccoli and kale.
Really?
You can't live. I have to make it absolutely clear to you and your listeners. We are not talking about a whole foods plant-based diet. We are not talking about a vegan or vegetarian diet. We're talking about a starch-based diet, which in my life coincidentally happens to be a whole food plant-based diet, and it also happens to be a vegan diet. But it doesn't have to be. It must be starch-based. You look at your plate, and 90% of it's rice and or potatoes and or corn and or beans and or sweet potatoes. Those are the foods people love. And there's a reason for it. That's the diet of the human being.
So it's an extremely low protein diet.
No, not really.
No.
You need about 4% of your calories as protein at most.
Yeah.
Potatoes are 6%. Sweet potatoes are 6%. Potatoes are about 10%. Beans are 30%. Oatmeal's 8%. You can't design a protein deficient diet.
Yeah.
The extra protein just becomes a burden to the body.
Mm.
If extra protein did what a lot of people think, which is to help you build muscles, then everybody would look like Arnold Schwarzenegger used to look.
Yeah.
And they don't. All that protein puts wear and tear on the kidneys, causes kidney stones, is a huge load of acid, which damages the bones, causes
Hmm.
osteoporosis. So it's protein is what you want to avoid, not look for.
Yeah. So Dr. McDougall, if somebody's watching this and they say, I'm on the ketogenic diet. I'm insulin resistant. I'm losing the weight, but I hear exactly what you're saying.
right?
But I'm told that don't do carbs because they're bad.
Well, you know what? What you're doing is contradicting 100,000 years of human behavior.
Yeah.
Okay, what you're contradicting is what the Bible says.
Mm-hmm.
What you're contradicting is what all of the unbiased scientific research says. Now, I have to tell you that 70% of the research is influenced by the pharmaceutical and food industries.
So there's some corruption there.
Well, you can't tell the difference between real news and fake news.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to our current administration, I know what fake news is. You can't tell the difference between facts, real facts, and alternative facts, because industry makes up the facts. So they're basically lying to the public. It's not a conspiracy, it's a business adventure.
Yes.
Lying to the public to sell food that has a downstream effect that everybody seems to like except for the sick patient and their family. The downstream effect is when you make people sick, then you build bigger hospitals,
Mm.
cancer centers, and heart centers. In fact, the biggest, shiniest buildings in your town are medical buildings. Uh, the downstream effect is on the drug companies. I mean, the drug companies are among the biggest businesses in the world, and they sell by and large drugs that are ineffective and do more harm than good. And they still, like, for example, we do work with multiple sclerosis patients at OHSU, which is the medical school in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
The cost of the medication for an MS patient, just one MS patient, is $1,000 a year.
Is that right?
For the medication, it doesn't work. It doesn't prolong lives. The people progress at the same rate. So they're lying about it. And I've told them it's criminal behavior, especially since we've done a study at OHSU showing the benefits of a good diet,
Mm.
treating multiple sclerosis.
Yeah.
So it's just the money. It's not a conspiracy.
Mm.
So the downstream benefits are to the drug companies, to the hospitals, to the doctors. Everybody benefits except for the sick person.
Is that right? Mm. Now, I know you mentioned earlier on oils, and I know there's so much confusion regarding oils, and
Yeah.
there's so many oils right now that are the craze. You have coconut oil, you have avocado oil, olive oil's been around forever. But what are the concerns with these oils or oils in general?
Well, oil, if you think about it, is not food. It's a component of that was once food. What they do is they suck out and isolate something like a monounsaturated fat, like olive oil.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer, this is not an olive anymore with all the antioxidants and phytochemicals and proteins and fibers. This oil is no longer in a milieu or an environment where it is relatively safe to eat. Olives are still fattening, nuts are still fattening, seeds are still fattening, but at least they're not unhealthy. They become healthy when you make them isolated, concentrated nutrients.
Mm.
And you're talking about the highest concentration of calories of any food commonly consumed. The fat you eat is the fat you wear. So if you're going to eat olive oil or coconut oil, you're going to wear coconut oil or olive oil. Uh, it Oil is the strongest promoter of cancer of all the components of the food that people eat.
Really? So why is that?
Well, what are the mechanisms? I don't know the exact mechanisms. They started studying them. A guy named Tannenbaum started studying this in the 1920s. There's not a lot of money that goes into research on food causing damage to health. Uh, it could be because of the hypoxic effects created at the cellular level by the oils.
Mm.
Uh, there are sure lots of toxic mechanisms that I don't know, which have been published, and there are many more to be elucidated. The omega-3 fats became very popular because omega-6 fats, excuse me, saturated fats became the evil in the 1970s, saturated fats being from animals, etc. Uh, so people were put on polyunsaturated fat diets with lots of corn oil, like the Finnish mental hospital study or the veterans study they did back in the 70s, and they put them on these, canola oils and corn oils and so on. They found out that they had less heart disease because they decreased saturated fat.
Really?
But they had more gallbladder disease. And long term, what they found out is they had more artery disease than those who stayed on the animal foods,
Mm.
those who put on the omega-6 fats. So it took a while. Initially, it reduced the risk of dying of heart disease. But after a while, when they looked at the arteries, like 40 years later, and they had this, well-controlled experiment, they found that those taking the corn oil, et cetera, had worse arteries than those who stayed on the animal foods.
Is that right? Now, this isn't just one oil or another. This is all oils.
All oils, no oil is a food.
Yeah,
Oil does not occur in nature, period. You must process the food to get the oil out.
really.
You make it an isolated, concentrated substance.
Now, I know you mentioned heart disease. So what about the heart disease patient who's watching and they say, well, my doctor says I need to take my fish oils because I need to have a healthy range of my omega fatty acids.
Yeah, this is a lie.
Really?
Uh, Not only is it a lie, but multiple studies, including the VITAL study, which was published January 3rd, 2019, in the New England Journal of Medicine. All the recent studies show that omega-3 fats let's see, vitamin D is another one that's been popular tested.
Mm-hmm.
Does not reduce the risk of disease. In
Is that
fact,
right?
vitamin D supplements in three major studies have been shown to increase the risk of falls and fractures. When you give somebody a supplement, you give them an isolated concentrated nutrient, which causes nutritional imbalances. That's probably one of the most important mechanisms for cancer too, is you cause nutritional imbalances. Melanoma, for example, has been strongly related to consuming polyunsaturated fats,
Mm.
sunshine exposure, as is the common dictum out there. You will find if you look in the literature carefully that there's a great debate out there as to what causes melanoma because we find so many melanomas in non-sun exposed areas, under the pants, under the shirt, between the toes,
Yeah.
etc. And so it's not true. Sunshine is healthy for you, but maybe if you combine it with polyunsaturated fats, uh, maybe if you don't combine it with polyunsaturated fats, maybe just the polyunsaturated fats alone. But I'll put my money on the food causing melanoma. Likewise, there's a publication by the American Cancer Society, February 13th, 2015, came out by the American Cancer Society, which showed that people with melanoma and prostate cancer and breast cancer and colon cancer, once they have the diseases, if they change their diet, they will live longer. That's what the American Cancer Society says. So they recommend as a fundamental part of cancer patients' therapy, a change towards the kind of diet I'm recommending to you. And to be specific, the diet I'm recommending to you is a diet based on starch.
Mm-hmm.
Things like pasta, breads, oatmeal, potatoes, sweet potatoes, with the addition of a few green and yellow vegetables and a few fruits. I suggest no free oils. If you need to gain weight, you'll want to eat some nuts and seeds and avocados, but no free oils.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, they're not in a protective environment. They've been removed from the avocado. They've been removed from the nut or seed. So they're no longer protected by antioxidants and other components of the plant, which make
Mm-hmm.
them safe and healthy, but high energy sources. So if you're going to eat nuts and seeds and avocados to any extent, you're going to gain weight. It's healthy weight, but you're going to gain weight.
Yeah. Yeah. So the person who's listening and says, okay, I need to stop my fish oil or my flaxseed oil. I need to I need to stop taking my vitamin D.
Yes.
What are the alternatives? I know diet, but specifically, what should they be incorporating?
You don't have to concentrate on anything
No.
unless you eat a diet of skim milk where they removed all the fat, which they did, by the way, in an experiment on newborns. back in the 1930s because newborns are getting fat on the formulas fed to them when they first developed formulas back in the 1930s. So they decided, well, it's because the formulas made of cow's milk were full of fat.
Mm.
Baby on skim milk formulas, and they developed a fatty acid deficiency. Otherwise, I've never heard of a fatty acid deficiency ever occurring. So you get plenty of fat in any kind of vegetable food. As far as the vitamin D, everybody knows where vitamin D comes from. It's the sunshine vitamin. That's how you get it. You get it through the skin. The reason you and I are so white is because our ancestors moved to higher latitudes. That's why we're white.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas people who are dark skinned, their ancestors up until recently lived near the equator. That's why they're dark.
Okay, yeah.
You know, and if you try and substitute vitamin D as a pill or a shot, you increase the risk of falls and fractures and kidney stones and all kinds of things. Plus, you get no benefits.
Mm.
You waste a lot of money. And as far as the fish oils go, you're killing the feeder fish. So the big fish don't have anything to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And the fish population since I was a young boy has gone down 90%.
90%.
90% of the fish in the ocean, the sea life is gone since I was a young boy.
Mm.
I have nothing to show my grandchildren.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it really is
Yeah.
terrible. And I think that the generation after me and the generation after you,
Mm-hmm.
you need to really get to work at this. No blame to be made for my generation or my parents' generation or whatever. We have a planet to save, and it's the only chance we have. Until we get the food fixed, we don't have a chance. I don't care how many solar panels or how many Teslas you sell.
Yeah. Yeah. So I probably already know your answer, but for the individual who's watching and says, well, what about my other supplements? What about my multiple vitamin? Do I discontinue that?
I recommend no supplements except for B12.
Really?
Yeah, and I reserve the right to change my recommendation on B12.
Mm-hmm.
I've recommended B12 for 50 years.
Now, these are for excuse me, these are for individuals who are following a diet that's rich in starches and plant foods.
For a pure vegan diet, your risk of developing a deficiency disease is about 1 in a million.
Is that right?
Or less.
Hmm.
People get all excited in fact, they do. They get all excited when a vegan gets sick.
Yeah, true. Excuse me.
You break a bone, you get hit by a bus. It doesn't matter if you were a vegan that your diet let you down.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm curious. In our local community, we have a pediatrician, and he is noticing an increase in fatty liver disease.
Yeah. Yeah, they say it's becoming the most common cause of liver disease, fatty infiltration of the liver, or non-alcoholic something or other.
And
it's become. I see it a lot in my patients, but I see it as elevation of liver enzymes. But they say that you can develop cirrhosis of the liver from this chronic inflammation due to the Western diet.
mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, all other organs fail, the brain,
Yeah.
the sex organs.
But it's sad that we're seeing this in children.
Well, that's one thing for you to mention, which brings us back to the whole moral issue.
Mm-hmm.
Civilized people take care of their children. I mean, they may do a lot of terrible things. They may cut people's heads off and burn them at the stake or whatever. But civilized people always take care of their children. I have to point out, in the United States of America, we do not take care of our children. We allow them to be fat and sick for known reasons, and it boils down to money. We'd rather protect the pharmaceutical industries, the beef industries, the dairy industry, than the health of our children.
Yeah.
The USDA and the Human Health Services Organization, I don't have that right, but anyway, their responsibility, the USDA, is to take care of agribusiness, which means the dairy and meat industry and other food industries, and the U.S. population. So they have this schizophrenic goal, and that accomplishing one defeats the other.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that's what to do. So what they do is they go in favor of what is on their own dinner plate, and as a result, bacon and eggs are recommended for breakfast. It's getting worse.
It's that. It is.
It was in the 1970s when I was at my peak, so to speak, or becoming very well known in terms of dietary advice. I had hoped that the world would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've seen is well, unfortunately, I've seen the opposite.
Yeah.
Industry all seems to win always.
And
We have success and truth on our side. They got the money.
yes, and it must be so difficult because after doing this for 50 years, you see the current state that we're in.
Yeah, it's not hopeful.
Yeah.
We need a revolution. I don't know that enough people's eyes are opened. The one thing I can tell you for sure is Mother Nature doesn't give a damn
Mm.
about whether or not the beef industry or the dairy industry survive. So Mother Nature is going to respond as she has, uh, to the point where they used to estimate that our serious environmental problems would be a century away. Now they're talking about them being a decade away.
Really, man.
So, I don't know. Maybe I won't live long enough to see the end, but I think you will.
Mm.
I'm pretty darn sure that my grandchildren will not have a future.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so thankful for the work that you've been doing and the voice that you've had.
People should know that this is all free. It's on our website at drmcdougall.com, which is DRMCDOUGALL. No periods. It's DRMCDOUGALL and two L's.
Okay.
McDougall.com. And we offer everything for free, pretty much.
That's awesome. And I will put a link in the show notes so people can go directly to your show as well.
We have also scientific papers published. There have been over 7 of them published. They've never been contested.
Mm-hmm.
Of results done on 1,615 of our patients, showing amazing miracles. We have work done with the Oregon Health and Science University, the medical school in Portland, showing absolute miracles in patients. A year-long history of compliance.
Really?
80% of people complied with the diet for a year. They got 1 year 20-pound drops in weight, 20-point drop in cholesterol. These changes are permanent. So we have research published that is uncontested, which shows this works, as well as thousands of years of history.
Yeah.
And tens of thousands of scientific studies that are not paid for, method regulated to show favorable outcomes for industry.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys, they're just people. The problem is we're not dealing with a TV set. We're dealing with your daughter. We're dealing with your wife.
Mm-hmm.
We're dealing with your best friend at work. We're dealing with everything.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to have a lousy TV shop. You got to get this right.
You have to, absolutely. One other question I have for you. I come in contact with individuals who say, I'm consuming a plant-based diet. My overall cholesterol is fine, but my triglycerides are through the roof.
Well, that happens occasionally.
Yeah.
And I've written a little bit about that on my website. You can look it up. But what happens is in sensitive people, their triglycerides will go up if they eat a lot of simple sugars, including fruits and fruit juices. But then it generally comes down in about 4 or 5 months. Certainly after they lose the weight, it almost always comes down. Well, in our study of 1,615 people, we found no rise in triglycerides. We left nobody out.
Mm-hmm.
On average, we found, in fact, a slight drop, an insignificant drop in triglycerides. So I'll often, and people with high triglycerides, when they start out, we found a 300-point drop in 7 days in triglycerides.
Really?
Alcohol, simple sugars. When people start thinking about a low-fat, high carbohydrate diet, they'll often go to snack, well, cookies and other simple sugar foods. Uh, and people drink a lot. Alcohol will raise triglycerides. But with continued adherence to the diet, associated weight loss, and a little exercise, they almost always become normal.
Okay. Great
The
advice.
medication, the co-fibrates, the fibrates used are dangerous. They should not be prescribed in almost all cases. So you only got one choice. Folks, you've only got one choice, and that's to fix the problem. The problem's the food. You're being poisoned by animal foods and free oils.
Mm.
The answer to your problem is to eat a starch-based diet with fruits and vegetables. The more whole the diet is, the better. But remember, 2 billion Asians did darn well on white rice. 90% of their diet has been white rice. And they almost won World War II. And they did win the Vietnamese conflict on a diet that was 90% white rice.
And that's interesting because you don't think of rice as being nutritionally dense.
Well, the diet I recommend is the most nutritionally dense of all diets there is.
Yeah.
As long as you don't focus on calcium and protein, and there's never been a case of calcium or protein deficiency, so why would you focus on that?
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of cases of scurvy and beriberi and pellagra, which are all due to plant deficiencies. There's fiber deficiency, and that's why over half the population is constipated. There's no fiber in any animal food.
Yeah.
This is all mixed up backwards, and we're going to keep trying. You and I and the rest of the group are going to keep trying because it's a world worth saving.
Yeah.
But no, it doesn't look optimistic.
Mm.
We need, I know you're a man of faith, as we need God here on earth to change.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, Dr. John McDougall.
God, we need you here right now.
Yeah. Well, Dr. John McDougall, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for educating our community. And, we'd love to have you, like I mentioned in the beginning, we'd love to have you back on our stage if you're ever available one of these days. So,
Well, you never know. I enjoyed my time with your family and your followers. So you never know whether I'll be back down that way or not. But certainly doing things by the internet, sharing that way is, the modern way to do things.
yeah, technology is amazing. So
Up to
again,
your-
so
Yeah, folks, this is really stupid simple. As I told you in the beginning, 2 sentences. The McDougall diet is based on starch with fruits and vegetables. It does not contain animal foods or oils. All you need to do is follow that diet, a starch-based diet.
mhm.
Go for a walk and get some sunshine, and you'll just do wonderful. You'll be amazed. We got nearly 90% of people to reduce or stop their medications. This is all published. This is uncontested data. It always works for dietary diseases, which are about 90% of the diseases people have in our country.
Yeah,
So,
man. Well, thank you so much.
yeah,
It's been a pleasure talking with you, learning from you. The wealth of information, 50 plus years of doing this.
yeah,
So
I've been there a long time.
thank you so much. I've enjoyed our time.
Thank you.
Have a great day. And for those who are new to the show, are learning about Dr. McDougall for the very first time, make sure you check out the show notes where I will have links to his website and also his books as well. So have a beautiful day.